Hi, Aaron O'Toole live to talk about NAFTA. This week you may have seen the headline that the Prime Minister's office here in Canada, a number of people in Cabinet were saying NAFTA could be cancelled at any moment. And that would be huge news. You saw our dollar fluctuate, you saw uncertainty with some of the shares of auto companies and others, because 2 million jobs in Canada rely on trade with the US and Mexico. So NAFTA is critical. It's also a conservative achievement. The government of Brian Mulroney brought in US free trade and then NAFTA. So it's critical for our economic success. So let's do a quick flashback. How has Trudeau handled the NAFTA negotiations? He's done some things well, some of the outreach to governors and other opinion leaders in the United States, but otherwise it's been terrible. And I'll illustrate it in a few ways. First, in July, the US put out a document, their priorities for NAFTA, sector by sector with a considerable degree of detail. So we knew in July what was coming in terms of rules of origin and some of the other issues that we knew would be trouble spots. What was the Canadian response? Nothing. No document, no detail. In fact, Chrystia Freeland gave a speech at a university. She talked about the War of 1812 and the great relationship between our countries. And that's true, we have a great relationship, friends, neighbors, and allies. But no detail. She didn't mention the auto industry. She didn't mention softwood lumber. She didn't mention most of the sectors that agricultural families depend on. No detail. So should it shock us that when US detailed proposals came months later, based in large part on what they said in July, was that really a shock? Certainly there were a lot of elements of Justin Trudeau's domestic political agenda put in the window front and center. The environment, Indigenous issues, a whole range of issues. And those are all very important issues. But generally, they can come after the parties agree on trade, on tariff rates, on rules of origin, on timelines for phasing in or out some of these tariffs. Justin Trudeau has not taken a serious approach to NAFTA from day one. So now his PMO is spinning that NAFTA is at risk. There are three parties in this negotiation, not just President Trump. Canada needs to get serious with NAFTA. I like the proposal I read today from Minister Freeland, proposing new ways of including part content in a calculation of domestic content or North American content for auto. That's smart. That's good. That's what we were asking for back in August. So I'm glad the Liberal government's finally getting serious on trade, at least with NAFTA. TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership meetings, Justin Trudeau did not even show up to a meeting with 11 world leaders of those countries. And I'll tell you, countries like Australia, New Zealand, Japan, some very close and long-standing allies, were wondering why Canada's Prime Minister was AWOL. The Liberal government almost lost the CETA, the European Trade Agreement, until the good work by Minister Freeland brought it in at the last second. We had negotiated that deal, it was all but done, but the Liberals reopened it and almost lost the entire deal. So trade is a critical issue for jobs in the economy, both in the Durham region that I represent, but across the country. It's about time that Canada starts taking the serious approach like the Americans have had and start fighting for our interests based on sectors where millions of Canadians are employed. That's the approach the Conservatives have said they should do from day one. It should be a jobs focus. I see now, 6 months later, the Liberals are finally getting that. So we're going to hold them to account. As I've said, I've tried to be positive and say where I appreciate the government's support and approach. But lately, they've been realizing that some of the image-based politics Justin Trudeau was doing, their inattention and lack of detail to NAFTA was leading to real doom. So they're going to try and blame this on President Trump. But in the case of NAFTA, it takes three to tango. And I'm glad Canada is finally on the dance floor. I'm Aaron O'Toole for you. Thanks for blue skying the situation with NAFTA with me.